Hello everyone, here psst.one. Today another interview with Michael Tan, an Australian artist based here in Berlin. His works are focused on the real 3D. He tried to find a way every time to realize this hyper-realistic scenario. He collaborated in the past with different electronic musicians for video clips alongside graphic design. Last month, also, he presented his collaboration with CEO for the ISEA Maxadome exhibition at Martin Grapp's Bow. But you will see all this stuff, so enjoy! How did you start with visuals, or in general with your 3D world?
With my 3D work, I guess it goes back a long time. Since I was probably a teenager, I was fortunate my dad was teaching graphics and art at university. And I think he had like a Apple IIe or something like a Plus, like a very simple Mac at the time. And I think that was the first time I saw like Adobe software and things like that when I was super young. But I guess that evolved, and I always wanted to study graphic design or multimedia kind of things. And I ended up going to Swinburne University in Melbourne and studying graphic design and multimedia there. And so I did industrial design, graphic design, product design, all in kind of the first year, which gave me a kind of nice spectrum of all design kind of things you could do. And also at that time I started to do flyers for like drum and bass parties and stuff in Australia. And that was kind of my introduction to the party, club music scene and electronic music scene in general. And we were bringing quite large acts over finally from the UK. And I was exposed by these kind of superstars, you know, at the time. And that's also the first time I started DJing a little bit. I would never really call myself a VJ, even now, to be honest, but that was like a really interesting time because I was playing with, I think it was Resolume and even Final Cut and this weird software which wasn't really designed for VJing at the time. It's like early 2000s, I guess. I think after 2004 and sort of concentrated on more graphic design and print design. And yeah, so I was doing that, and then the biggest change, I guess, happened was when I moved to Berlin, and I wanted to become a freelancer and do more creative things and collaborate with people, and that was something I wanted to do, and that's why I kind of moved to Berlin in 2011, I think. And so since then, I came here and I was inspired by companies and the fact that Cinema 4D was made in Germany, and there was like a bigger community here. And the community was very welcoming, and I think I've worked in a lot of different studios in Berlin and in Europe as well.
Why did you then continue with the VJing stuff?
That's a good question. I think, I mean, music's always been a part of my what I do, especially in my spare time. So I don't know. I think back in that 15 years ago, it wasn't really maybe enough for me to keep wanting to do that as a full-time kind of gig. Also in Australia, there wasn't many opportunities maybe, sadly, but there is now, obviously. But back then, there maybe wasn't, and people weren't so serious about that then, especially, tour promoters, and they didn't really want to always spend the money on making it nice,
Your style is completely what I saw online or also in the last exhibition. Is super realistic, hyper realistic.
Yeah.
Why you choose this aesthetic? Why you move in this direction?
I think in the past I didn't like realism. Like when I was studying and stuff, I thought that was boring, or not creative in some ways. And I think more recently, since I've kind of gained more knowledge about how to do that, and also it's become more accessible to do that with cheaper hardware, much more resources online, and I think it's sort of interesting to make, especially lighting. I think it's more about lighting for me than having a realistic 3D model of something. It's more about the lighting and sort of, in a way, fooling people. If I can fool someone to think it's real, there's kind of get a bit of kick out of that. You know, it's like, I tricked them kind of thing, which sounds a bit evil too, maybe. But yeah, it's more about just capturing light, I think, and it's more about the surface materials of things. And I don't think things have to look real necessarily, but I like the properties of realistic materials and lighting, I think. I think it's more about that for me than actually making things look photorealistic or copying something from a photo. That would be a bit boring to me still. And but I think one reason was that I just wanted to do 3D because I didn't have to spend any money on materials. I could make things in the computer. I could make a statue out of gold and make it look like gold without spending $1.
As you told before, you worked for some video clip around also here in Europe. The last one, one of the most appreciated was the one for Benjamin Damage.
Oh yes, yeah.
That I really like. You have a favorite one on this video clip?
I've made a few, and I think the one that the Benjamin Damage one is obviously really good because I collaborated with my good friend Tom on that, and that was a good collaboration, and we did it quite fast as well, And but I think one of my favorites is the one I did for Faulty DL, which was something I shot with a drone and kind of had more visual effects approach to it by tracking in different 3D objects, mainly cloth and stuff. I don't know, I think that one was just something I made without thinking too much. It was kind of like an automatic kind of concept, which was kind of fun to work on, and also the result after a while was like, I think I was quite happy with that.
You're still happy about it?
Yeah, I'm never really happy about anything.
Of course, naturally.
Yeah, especially music videos, because there's always something you could have had if there was more time, more money. But yeah, I think the one for Benjamin Damage though certainly has got a lot of I like the aesthetic of that one, you might say. Yeah.
ESM Hexadome. In general, you can talk me about the project in general. What inspired you to make that installation and also the performance?
In general, I used to go a lot to these Feed Sound Space events, which is what Nick and Brendan and all those guys were used to do before Hexadome ISM, and I used to like going there because it was somewhere you could see musicians and producers play music that wasn't geared towards making the crowd super happy or a promoter super happy, or to make people dance. It was actually just more about their own creativity. And I think that's what I liked about the Hexadome as well. I think that kind of carried on a bit with that. And also the visual aspect was also very, the melding of music and visuals, I think was really good behind that. And for this show, I think I collaborated with CAO, and she is Peruvian, and I thought we were coming up with some ideas, and we thought what can we display here, and I was already kind of interested in really kind of just aesthetic of clay and ancient artifacts, nothing too deep there. And so we thought we'd kind of use the Peruvian ancient cultures to drive, since her music has also got elements of folklore and Amazon's kind of sounds. So it kind of made sense to go down this kind of route, and I wanted to explore, just textures of clay and earth and water and stuff like this. Yeah, this figure is actually an old, I might get the pronunciation wrong here, but it's the Mushta civilization, which is before the Incas. And so, this is kind of a tangent I went on and wanted to make more of these, but that was kind of some iconography I wanted to inject in it to just reinforce that kind of ancient civilization iconography. And yeah, that was all made in like Houdini and sort of in a way procedural way. So I could make random ones and like lots of different ones.
How long you work with Houdini?
I'm relatively new to Houdini. I think I bought a license maybe 2 years ago. So, I mean, in Houdini land, that's quite new, I guess. But I think there's a very steep learning curve, and once you get to a certain point, you can sort of see over the top of the mountain and see what you can do with it. And I think that's maybe where I've hit recently. Obviously, still maybe a long way to go, but I just find it inspiring, actually, as a software tool itself. Like, I think a lot of the stuff that people are doing now, the artistry is in the software engineering and the software itself in a way. And I think that's what Houdini is inspiring to me for that reason, I think, yeah. The Hexadome, I'm just going to talk about the Hexadome again, but well, I made all the animation in Unreal Engine, that you might know about already. And it was kind of like the prototype version for this at stage. And I wanted to develop that further. So it is totally real time and can input multiple like input devices and audio sources and trying to make it like its own kind of living organism somehow. So
Kind of standalone.
Yeah, it could be standalone or human driven or both, yeah.
Because did you enjoy to perform?
Yeah, I think the performance part, because I haven't done that for many years, and I was incredibly nervous for that. But that went away pretty fast, and I just enjoyed it, and just getting some responses, immediate responses from people after doing that. You don't get that after you release a music video on YouTube. You get a few weird comments, that's about all. And also performing it twice on one night was interesting because they weren't exactly the same either. And I tried to make it so I could make a lot of errors in a way, which is more interesting.
I feel real. I feel real. Woo!